given sufficient time on the part of the student. There's not much separating Jacques Rancière's approach to pedagogy from the radical autodidactism of the worker intellectuals of the 1830s and 40s, whose writings Rancière studied in the 1970s. Indeed, were the formulation not such a paradoxical one could, I suppose, describe Jacotisme as a kind of structured autodidactism or guided autodidactism. It's the political meaning of Rancière's engagement with Jacques Rancière that I want to turn to finally. First of all, it casts a shadow of suspicion over established educational institutions, which seem to promise more in terms of social and intellectual equalisation than they're capable of ever delivering. Rather, as in the writings of Paul Goodman and other figures in the de-schooling movement of the 1960s in the US, the educational establishment's politically suspect. Less because it's thought of, as Althusser does in his essay on ideological state apparatuses, as a way of the state wielding a kind of soft power, but more because the promise which the philosophical pedagogue holds out to the student and to society as a whole, that learning will lead to a better life, to emancipation, proves to be hollow and indeed institutionally self-serving. And of course, this ties in very closely with Rancière's long-standing Maoist critique of the supposedly privileged insight of intellectuals and other experts, including, of course, most notably Althusser. Abstracting, finally, from the directly pedagogical context, if Rancière's Jacotisme means presuming, declaring and verifying equality, how does the unique conception of radical equality play out, this unique conception of radical equality play out in the political arena? In the transition from Le Maître Ignorant to the more overtly political writings of Au bord du politique and La Mésentente, we move from a situation in which the teacher is presuming, declaring and verifying the equality of a student to a situation in which the sans-part are doing this for themselves. In these essays of the 1990s, Rancière is concerned with the presuming, the declaring and the verification of their own equality by those who are sans-part, with the formal mechanics of the precarious process of political subjectivation by which they can enter into the space of political recognition, political subjecthood, and in so doing reconfigure the perceptual parameters of that space. So what then is, in the final analysis, declarative equality in Rancière's work? I'd like to suggest that his declarative conception of equality, in which the subject presumes, declares and verifies his or her equality, is a powerful operator of collective and individual self-transformation, which simultaneously reconfigures the space of politics. In other words, Rancièrean declarative equality is concerned with a politics of self-esteem or self-worth. The presupposing, the declaring of one's own equality is that which allows one to speak as though one expected to be listened to. It precedes and paves the way for the giving of reasons, for the giving of arguments over how to remedy this inequality, but it's concerned with establishing the necessary precondition for that giving of arguments. I've got a quotation here from Le Maître Ignorant. Le problème n'est pas de faire des savants. Il est de relever ceux qui se croient inférieurs en intelligence, de les sortir du marais où ils croupissent. Non pas celui de l'ignorance, mais celui du mépris de soi, du mépris en soi de la créature raisonnable. Rancière's concept of declarative equality is concerned then with the self-transformation of the oppressed. In a non-trivial sense, it's about self-worth as a necessary prior condition for political action. And as such, it relates, I think, very closely to some of the work done by German social theorist Axel Honneth. Rancièrean declarative equality does not somehow magically obliterate the need for rational deliberation, or indeed for other kinds of argument about what kinds of equality and what sorts of distributions are fair or unfair, but rather its sphere of operation is different. Rancière's thought focuses instead on the way in which that sphere is constructed and reconstructed as new subjects enter and transform it. In other words, Rancièrean declarative equality has to do with the constitution of the space of debate, rather than the arguing over or the resolution of claims in rational or argumentative terms. Declarative equality provides the self-transformative impetus to subjectivation, by which the oppressed, in what for Rancière is the brutally unprincipled process by which democratic discussion comes into being, it provides that impetus to that self-transformative process of subjectivation. Declarative equality doesn't remove the need for rational deliberation over what is and isn't fair. If anything, the radical formalism of Rancière's political ontology makes such debate all the more necessary. However, declarative equality does not itself operate within the sphere of rational political deliberation. Rather, it moulds and remoulds the ontic and aesthetic constitution of that space and the subjects and potential subjects who lie respectively within it and beyond its bounds. Declarative equality is what allows access to the space of democratic political argument. And what follows from Jacquotisme, then, is quite simply argument. Thank you.